Hello everybody, welcome to my channel Astro-Jyotish. My name is Sunil and in today's video I'll be talking about the combinations in a Kundli or a vedic chart that makes a person inclined towards becoming an entrepreneur. So before I go into the technical astrological aspect, let's understand what one needs, what qualities one needs to possess in order to become an entrepreneur. So first thing is the personality of the person, which essentially means uh, how well a person is equipped to handle risk, to whether he has the courage, whether he has the authoritative kind of personality, whether he can adapt to the changing world. So that's what essentially personality signifies. The second aspect is in the chart, basically the houses that are responsible to represent um, the entrepreneur's aspect. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect, what you probably need for a successful entrepreneur is he should have the skills required to deal with the customers. He should have skills to have good partnership with the right people. Yeah, so that's the other aspect to look into. And of course, last but not the least is the profit and gain, because you become an entrepreneur basically to make profit and share with your shareholders. So those are kind of the key elements that makes one a successful entrepreneur. So let's go a little bit more in details in terms of the personality first. So the personality wise, the house which represents the personality in a chart is basically the first house. So you need to look at the first house, which is also called as the lagna, your ascendant, and the Lord. So you need to look whether the house and the Lord, how strength in the strength of those two, that needs to be really, really solid. Now, what I mean by that when I say strength, so basically the planets that are considered really strong are, let's say, the Sun, Moon, and Mars. So Sun represents in astrology the king or the authority, so that people really, revolves around authoritative authority. That's like being a CEO of his own company. The second is moon. Why moon? Moon is basically it changes very quickly, so it shows the adaptive nature. Can you adapt to the needs of the customer? So that's where you need your moon. Okay, your moon should be really good. Then the other aspect is the planet Mars. So Mars represents really the courage. So you need to have the courage to stand up and speak to your customer and convince them. So it's a fighting ability you need, and you need that very constantly. So that's why the personality plays like 60-70%. The attribute goes to personality. Let's now look at the the karma houses. So basically the houses in a chart that represents uh, a, a, a native's profession. So these are the 10th house. And when you think about the 10th house, why the 10th house? It's the 10th house. And also, I just want to make the third house. Why third house? Because the third house is the house of self-employment. So basically, if somebody is self-employed, then the third house should be really strong. Okay, and if you have Saturn in there, just as an example, that essentially, it's likely that the native, after the age of 32, when Saturn matures, is likely to start his own business. So that's just an example I've just added in here. And in 10th house, if you think about the Rahu, so if you see Rahu, especially connected with 10th house, what does that show? So Rahu is basically the foreign. So the business can be associated with some foreign. There will be a foreign element if Rahu becomes associated with 10th house. Of course, you need to look at the personality and other aspect, which I will be talking next. So let's look at the customer and the partnership. So the house that represents the partnership is basically the seventh house. So the seventh house has to be really strong. Why? Because if it's not strong, you won't be able to deal with your customer. You should be able to somehow make sure, convince the customer. Okay, so that's why seventh house has to be strong in your chart in order to really win over the customer. And the planet that basically that really brings juice to the seventh house is the planet Mercury. Okay, so in the Kalpurus chart, basically you have Libra there, which is, the sign is a balance, but that's essentially represents business. So let's move on. Now, the other aspect is to look into the profit and gain. How do you see the wealth or the profit or the gain? So, second house represents wealth, 11th house represents gain from your work, and then the ninth house for luck. So you might gain a lot of money, but if you're not lucky enough, that might delay things, or it might delay, or you might not gain as much as the other would gain if they had a good ninth house or the ninth lord situated well. Now, what's most important in all these parameters is to understand that if the planets which I have mentioned here, they are in the right houses, but if they are not strong, let's say they are debilitated, or they are not in a friendly sign, then the results is not going to be very fruitful. So you might become an entrepreneur, but not maybe a global one. You might be a entrepreneur with a limited resources and limited profit. So that's now there are little bit of technical aspects which I want to talk about. A quick thing to look at. So if you take your chart and if you count the number of planets between eighth and the second house, okay, if you have higher number of planet between eighth and the second house compared to third and seventh house, then that likely shows that you would likely be doing your uh, own business, or you will be self-employed. So any connection between second, seventh, and 11th house, that's also any strong yoga for one to become an entrepreneur. So second house is wealth, seventh house is again house of partners. So you that essentially indicate you are able to, with partners, you are going to make gains because second house is wealth and 11th house is gain. And in business, you can't run a business if you don't have partners, and so it's important that there is a connection between them. I've just mentioned few yogas which I think I've noticed in some of the entrepreneurs. One, there's a Lakshmi yoga, Gajakesri yoga, Parivartan yoga, Raj yogas. I won't go into details of these yogas, but if you, because that would just extend the video, I will be in my next video, I will be taking up some famous entrepreneurs and showing you how all these rules work on their chart, and also these yogas, how they play role in their chart. So I hope you like this video, and I'll be making a second video where I will show each rule, how that rule applies to those charts. So thank you very much. See you later.